Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining this event. It's really great to see so many of you here from different corners of the earth to celebrate with us the launch of our new series of 25 online lectures on global democracy and justice, all of which are already available on YouTube and soon also on other platforms. My amazing wife and colleague, Dina Freeman, and I have worked a lot to write and record and produce this series, and we are really excited and delighted to present it to you now. First of all, we would like to express our profound thanks to the Workable World Trust and to Citizens for Global Solutions for the faith in us and support that made this project possible, and also to Democracy Without Borders and the Young World Federalists and several others who helped us in all sorts of important ways. Over the next hour, Dina and I, together with some great guest speakers, we will tell you about what you can expect to find in those lectures, show you a few short clips from a selection of them, and then we will take questions and comments in a not too long moderated discussion. So over to you, Dina.
Okay, thank you very much, Oded. So we have produced 25 video lectures all about global democracy and justice, which we're really excited to present to you today. And really the aim of these video lectures is to stimulate education and discussion and debate within our movement, but also what we really hope is that it will help to spread the word about these ideas, which we're all very passionate about, beyond the movement. And to help diversify our movement and grow it. So how do you find the videos? You go to YouTube and you search Global Democracy and Justice Lecture Series. Now, at the moment, you need to search for all of that. Okay, so you'll see several lectures down here, but if you go here, this takes you to the channel. And here you can see all of our lectures. We have 25 lectures all about different aspects of global democracy and justice. You'll see over here the subscribe button. I very much ask you to, if you would be willing to press this button and subscribe. We're not at all going to spam you with loads of emails or anything like that, but it tells the YouTube algorithm that this is interesting and people like it, and it will help other people find it. Now, we have 25 videos that cover all manner of key topics, things that we thought were fundamental in regarding world federalism and global democracy and global justice. These are very much approaching global democracy from a justice point of view. Each video is between 5 minutes and around 35 minutes. Okay, the average is around, say, 20 minutes, but there are a few shorter ones and a few longer ones. And if you want, you can watch them all in order, or you can jump around. It's not produced in a way that you have to watch them in order. And actually, it can be quite interesting to sort of put different ones next to each other as they all kind of speak to each other in different ways. We've organized them into 4 modules. So you'll see here we have the first module, module 1, developing a global framework. And these are kind of theoretical, setting out what is world federalism, what's the ideal global democracy, some looking at the history of democracy in the future, looking at issues around globalization, global governance. These are, if you like, kind of background, setting the scene types of videos. Then we have module 2, which is problems of the current international system. And here we look at the actually existing international order that we have today and show how various issues that we care about and we believe that many of you will care about kind of can't be solved in this current system. So whether it's human rights, the climate crisis, economic inequality, migration and refugees, we tackle kind of each one in turn. And we very much thought this was a good way of presenting because it can be shared with people who come from different NGOs and movements and people with different concerns. So it would be great to share the human rights video with human rights activists, right? And the climate video with climate activists. And that can be a way to bring in people who aren't necessarily world federalists. They've been more focused on one particular issue, but then perhaps through looking at that issue and how it can't, and we really believe it can't be solved in the current international order, might become interested in thinking about how to change that international order into a global and democratic one. Now, the third section is key world federalist thinkers. And here we had a lot of fun with this section because we delved into the stories of some key world federalist thinkers. And whilst many people often think that the movement is predominantly white and Western and male, it actually isn't. There have been people from all different parts of the world who have kind of independently come to the idea that the best way to organize the world is a democratic world federation. And so we really want to tell their stories here, the stories of how they came to that idea and their experience in life with that. So we have people that are perhaps more well-known, Rosika Schwimmer, a feminist activist, and Albert Einstein, of course, is very well-known. Also Nehru and Nkrumah, but perhaps those that are slightly less well-known, like Jusue De Castro from Brazil, who is a very important figure, is very well-known in Brazil, but perhaps less so outside. And so we have people from all over the world. And then in the fourth section, the module 4 about ways forward. And so here we put videos where we're really thinking about, okay, if you're convinced that this is the way to go, how do we actually get there? What are the steps in the right direction? And so we have a number of videos. We have this one here about debunking the objections, is where 𝐻𝐸d takes head on those conversations that I'm sure many of you have had, where people just say, it's unfeasible, it can't work, it's all crazy. And he debunks those ideas one by one. So it's a really useful video for how to answer some of those questions. And we have some on localism and globalism, world citizenship, and also, of course, a world parliament. And then the final one about sort of various different pathways forward. So that's our 25 videos. Now, just to say, if you open any of them,
some of the most...
Okay, if you go here, you'll see that they come up with subtitles automatically in English. Not automatically, we've created these subtitles in English. If you press this button here, settings, you see we have a category here of subtitles currently marked as English. If you click that, and then you see here we have auto translate. This will use YouTube's own auto translate function to bring those subtitles into pretty much any other language, okay? So for example, if we wanted to have them in Hindi, right, then we can have our subtitles in Hindi. Now, the auto translate is not perfect. It's good enough to get going, to give us an idea. But as you'll see, we have some here in Hebrew and Swedish, where we've actually, with very kind volunteers, some of whom are on the call with us today, we've gone through those auto translations and kind of fixed them so that they're, really better. And we would love it if you see your language here and you feel that the auto translate is not very good. Please get in touch with us or with Camilla, who will speak in a moment. And we'd love to have some volunteers that could help to fix those translations into a whole load of different languages. Also, of course, being YouTube, you can like it and you can share. And all of these things, as well as just sort of expressing how much you like the videos, tells the algorithm that these things are popular and helps to spread. So the more that you can do that, would be great. Now, if I just run back to our page here, at the top here, you can see we have a link also to our website. This is the website of One World. Okay. And we have put all of the lectures also on our website. Okay, so it's another place that you can find them. And they are freely available for you to put on your websites. So if any of your organizations would like to, you can put them also on your website in this same format or any format that you like, or just some of them or all of them. So they are freely available to be used that way, and we would be delighted if you did so. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So how do we imagine that you could use these videos? And there's obviously lots of different ways. So first of all, you can sit at home and watch them, and anyone can sit at home and watch them. And that's obviously wonderful because wherever you are in the world, even if you're the only person interested in world federalism and global democracy, you can watch them. But perhaps even more fun, with more potential, is that you could watch them in a group. So for example, in your organization, or even with a group of friends or colleagues, you could come together, show them up on a big screen, and watch them together and discuss and debate, because they're very much supposed to stimulate discussion and debate rather than say this is how things are. So they could be used, for example, in the way that people read books together in a book club. You could have a group that meets together and watches a video and discusses it every week or every month or however you might like. Or you could use them if you wanted to organize a seminar. And this could be, again, a seminar in your organization, or if you're in any kind of educational institution, in a high school or in a college or a university, some of these videos could well be appropriate for academic settings as well. So they are freely available to be used in that way as well. And sometimes you could put, for example, two different ones together and sort of back to back, that they speak to each other in different ways. Or you could, for example, take one of these videos and then in an event show that, and then show a video from a different perspective, right? Say you wanted to do an event on climate change, you might show the video on climate and then show some other video on climate or your own presentation on climate that have quite different ideas, and use that to get a debate going. You could also use them to run a course, either an online course that you might put on your website, or actually an offline course where you again would get a group of people in a room, present them and run exercises around them. And this is actually how they originally started. Before we made these videos, we ran an offline course, a 10-week offline course, and they've kind of emerged and evolved over the years into these videos. So they would suit that very well. And I'm sure there's many other ways. And we really hope that people can pick them up and be creative with them and use them. So with that, let me hand over to Oded, who has a few more things to say.
Thank you, Dina. Yeah, so besides those great things of liking the videos and maybe commenting on them, and of course, subscribing to the channel, they can be a great resource in online discussions. When, for example, you try to explain to someone that in order to really solve global warming or global inequality, we just have to have also global democracy. And if that person is intrigued by the thought and he wants to learn more, then instead of you having to explain the whole issue to them, you can just post the link to our lecture on climate change or inequality and so on, and take it from there. And those of you who are on Facebook, please note that we opened up a special page there with the same name, Global Democracy and Justice, where we are going to upload in the next few weeks all the videos, so they will also be on that platform and it will be easier to share it there. So please just search for our page and click follow or like, so Facebook will know that this content is hot. Similarly, we just opened pages for these lectures on Twitter and Instagram. So if you prefer those platforms, please find us there and like and retweet. And finally, I must tell you, these video lectures contain a huge number of pictures that we found, and illustrations and animations and graphs and maps that make the videos really worth watching. But for those of you who are podcast addicts like me, and sometimes really like to listen to good lectures while you are doing other things, while you are driving or on the bus or cooking at home or whatever, we got you covered. You can just find the lecture series on your favorite app, whether it's Google Podcasts or Spotify or Podbean or whatever. Just search for Global Democracy and Justice or Global Democracy and Justice lecture series and subscribe and listen. And give us a feedback. We'd love to hear what you think. So back to you, Dina.
Okay, thanks, Oded. I think that's actually enough from us. We have 5 very special guest speakers that we've invited to come along today to share some of their views about the lecture series and the videos. And we will actually show a few clips of them as well. And then we'll discuss and answer questions at the end. So let me hand over now to Camila Lopez Badra. Camila is the Executive Director of Democracia Global in Argentina. She is also the chair of the Membership and Outreach Committee of the World Federalist Movement. And we are very, very honored and lucky to have her as the project manager for this video project going forward. So Camilla, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dina and Ode. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, of course, I would like to thank One World for giving me the opportunity to be part of this launch event and the honor to be part of this project. I can see a lot of faces that I already know, but I would love to introduce myself for those that I don't. My name is Camila López Badra. I'm the Executive Director of Democràcia Global, as Dina said. It's a small NGO based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and our goal has always been to promote global democracy, and we do this by promoting the existence of democratic institutions at the regional level, but also at the continental and global level, either through the reform of existing organizations or through the creation of new ones. Our main campaign is to create a Latin American Caribbean criminal court against transnational organized crime. But I'm here today because I have the honor to have been designated as the project manager of the initiative that brought us together in this launch. I am excited to take charge of the strategy for promoting and distributing these videos about global democracy and justice worldwide. Going forward, I will be the main point of contact for inquiries about the videos and any idea or proposal around it, and I'm very excited about it. With the help of our team in Democràcia Global, we will be contacting other organizations, movement, educational institutions, students, and people from civil society to promote and spread those videos. One of the ways we will be doing this is through the organization of a series of webinars around the videos, where we can watch them together and discuss and debate the issues raised, organized in different languages and time zones, and that is very important to us, to be very inclusive and expand beyond the English-speaking world. Aiming, as I said before, to spread this content around the world, to be used in different areas and to reach all generations, but in particular, the younger generations. With the help of Melina and Victoria from Democràcia Global, we will be in charge of spreading these videos on social media. So expect to see posts and clips coming up on your feeds. I hope you help us to expand our network. I will be also organizing a team to make a study guide that will be helpful for people who want to use the videos to run classes or seminars, as Dana was saying. So please get in touch with me if you would like to be involved in that. And I am also the chair of the Membership and Outreach Committee of the World Federalist Movement. Democràcia Global and One World are part of this movement, which is an umbrella organization for groups promoting global democracy and world federalism in different parts of the world. And as World Federalists, we view the world as one society embracing all humanity in all its diversity. We affirm that the ideal and principle of community life, which are basic to civil existence and can and must be applied in the international relations. To this end, we call for urgent progress in developing the democratic world institutions of law. We think that the global problems need global solutions. We need to assure a peaceful, just, non-corrupt, and ecologically sustainable world community. As chair of this committee, I will also be working along with the organizations of the World Federalist Movement to spread those videos in our community and beyond. I will try to be as federalist as I can. I am from the Global South, I am from Argentina, and I think this is very important to keep in mind that we need people from all over the world. I was asked by Dean and Ode to choose my favorite video, and I choose number 3, about the history and future of democracy, which gives a detailed overview about the development of democracy throughout the years. What I like the most about this video is that it shows how democracy was institutionalized in the system and how we can use the advance of technology as a tool to make global democracy possible. We live in a world where uncertainty and volatility are everywhere. The current political order and the traditional power have become destabilized and unable to offer lasting solutions. We are suffering from a structural problem. That's why it is time for global institutions to be equipped with the power they need to tackle global threats and manage global commons, like public health, climate action, sustainable development, non-proliferation, and peace. We hope you enjoy this series of lectures and they can inspire you to outreach new people and develop network who thinks that we can be the change. Quoting the video I mentioned before, the world is interconnected. And what we need now is political interconnection, a way in which the voice of the people can be heard, a way in which the many can govern the world and its resources for the benefit of everyone, a way in which we can come together to solve global problems. If we want to do all this, then we need global democracy. The main question I would love you to ask me is, how can I help? So if you would like to help organizing webinars to discuss those videos, if you would like to volunteer to translate the subtitles into your language, if you would like to collaborate with us, if you would like to help us to be part of the team, please get in touch with me. You will be welcome. Now you have the opportunity to become the protagonist and be part of this initiative. So you can contact me by LinkedIn with my name or by email in democraciaglobal@gmail.com. So thank you very much. Thank you all you that are here today, and I hope to have you on board.
Okay, thank you very much, Camilla. So we're going to now show a small clip from that video that Camilla chose, The History and the Future of Democracy.
Hayek and other neoliberal economists figured out several clever ways to bring economic matters out of democratic control, while still leaving the structures of democracy in place. The most fundamental way was to expand the economy beyond the borders of the state. In a globalized economy, no state would be able to control and regulate the economy, and thus the economy would effectively escape democratic control. And indeed, since around the beginning of the 1980s, Western governments have implemented policies to enable economic globalization. They've removed capital controls and tariffs and duties and made it easier and easier for capital to flow across borders and for national economies to integrate into one big global economy. This is what we generally call globalization, or more precisely, neoliberal globalization. And at the same time as the economy is globalized, government and regulation has remained at the state level, and thus much of the economy has now indeed escaped democratic control. Governments now find it very hard to tax elites or big corporations, for example, because they can simply move their money outside of the country, ideally to a tax haven, where it can sit in secret. This has greatly helped the elites to make big profits. And there are a whole load of other ways that parts of the economy have been quietly removed from democratic control. Central banks have been given independence to make monetary policy, in many cases outside of democratic government control. And in many countries around the World Bank and the IMF have encouraged governments to draft new constitutions which insulate certain key economic and financial matters away from parliamentary control. And a whole raft of undemocratic global governance arrangements have been created, not by coincidence mainly in the economic and financial spheres, which govern key areas of the global economy without any input from democratically elected parliamentarians, and without the majority of the world's peoples even knowing anything about them. Put all these things together, and you'll see that there has been a process of economic de-democratization taking place since the 1980s. The structures of democracy still exist, political parties, elections, and so on, but it's been hollowed out. Economic matters, in particular, have been largely removed. And this explains two things. Firstly, it explains why that graph of economic inequality starts changing direction around 1980, and why inequality starts rising after that.
So that was just a little taster. Hopefully got you a little bit curious, but that's just a taster from that lecture. Now, let me invite our second guest speaker, which is John Vlasto, who is the chair of the World Federalist Movement, speaking to us from London, England. John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dina and Oded, for this wonderful series of videos. So, as Dina said, I chair the World Federalist Movement, which is an umbrella organization for World Federalist groups around the world. And a key part of our role is to help spread the World Federalist message. So I am very excited to see this wonderful video series. I'd also like to thank Camilla. I think you can see from her presentation why she chairs our membership and outreach committee at WFM. We're very lucky that she's in that role. And she's already explained how in that role and in her other role, she plans to leverage these videos to spread our ideas both directly and through all the member organizations we work with. And yeah, I'd really like to thank Dina and Oded for I know how much work you put into this. And now you're very generously gifting it to all of us. So thank you so much for that. That is just fantastic. So speaking personally, what drew me to the World Federalist Movement was the concern that humanity isn't taking great care of its home planet. And on any analysis that just is at root a failure of global governance. So I was particularly interested in the climate crisis episode. What we're about to see in the clip I've selected highlights what to me are some absolutely key issues in global environmental governance. And this is the same message I'm going to be taking to 𝐿𝐴𝐞𝐝 next month in Egypt, where with a colleague, I'm looking to initiate a global environmental governance project. So just to flag the key points that are made here, so they'll get repeated in the video. First of all, it starts with government of humanity, by humanity, for humanity. Well, what exactly? That's global, that's world federalism in a nutshell. Then we have our future, our choice. And our choice, I think, is a very important message because it is easy to get pessimistic about our chances of having any impact on how things are going. And we do have a choice. And if we really believed we didn't, if we really didn't have hope, then I don't imagine we'd be on this call. So very important message that we do have choice. Then we have the absolutely core message that I bang on about all the time. National sovereignty is the wrong tool to tackle global challenges. There's reference to a global tax on fossil fuels. Yes, yes, yes. The economists have been saying this forever. You know, as they say, tax the externalities, price the externality. Of course. Why don't we? Because we don't have the right global political structure to implement a global tax. So yes, we need to change the global politics. And finally, the message that one hears from green activists, and I've heard this, is, you know, all this kerfuffle about global governance is all very lovely and abstract and everything, but we don't have time. You know, these environmental issues are urgent. We've actually got to tackle the issue directly. We have no time to mess around about global governance. Well, I hear where they're coming from. I see why people say that. But if you look at the chart that's in this video of carbon emissions over the last 30 years, that approach hasn't worked. And I'll tell you what we don't have time for, and that is continuing to ignore the elephant in the room, which is that national sovereignty doesn't work for global issues, and it never will. And I see it very much as our role to get the environment movement to understand this. Now we have a climate change video to help convey that message. So thank you very much again, Dina and Oded, for this tool in our armory. And one final appeal, again, echoing a message we heard earlier. Yes, you can watch these videos by yourself for the comfort of a little bit of confirmation bias or entertainment, but that's not really the point. This is a tool for spreading our message. So we should do the work of using these videos to get out there and get more support for what we're trying to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Let me see if I can more successfully bring up the clip this time.
The federal government of humanity, by humanity, and for humanity. These are not just cliches. This is our planet and our future. So then it must also be our choice. Our slogan should be, no emission without permission. Global democracy now. And sure enough, we are so used to the current system and so immersed in it, that a democratic world federation is something that people find hard to even imagine. But this is the only real alternative to the anarchic international system that divides us today, and nothing less will do. In a reality where we have one global market system and one global ecological system, national independence is a myth, a pie in the sky that has to go and be replaced with a new democratic institutional system fit for global interdependence. It will enable us to finally solve together not only the climate crisis, but plenty of other injustices and inequalities that plague and endanger our world. With regard to the climate, we need a global tax system so that we can start taxing fossil fuels globally to reduce their emissions. Until then, national restrictions on emissions, if there are any, to a great degree just incentivize polluting industries to go offshore to countries where the governments are too weak or too corrupt to do anything. While green activists surely agree that global justice system would have been a very desirable thing, it still sounds to them too big and ambitious. They fear that achieving it requires too much energy and time that we simply don't have. The danger, they say, is so great that we just have to find a solution even within the current system. But then, we have wasted more than 3 precious decades in trying to get this unworkable system to work. Is there really a chance that in the next years it will do anything differently?
Okay, so that was a little clip from our environment video. Again, hopefully it's a teaser to get you interested. Now let me call on our next speaker, which is 𝐎𝐲𝐸, who is the Executive Director of the World Federalist Movement. We're very excited to have Amy here. Amy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dina, for that lovely introduction, and congratulations to you and Oded on the book and on this video series. It's incredibly well done, very informative and engaging. I will say that since stepping into my role as Executive Director of the World Federalist Movement, I've been getting a lot of questions about world federalism and the place of women and of the Global South in such a movement. And I find that these videos answer these questions really well by highlighting the value of global governance and world federalism in a very practical way, but also in demonstrating how these marginalized groups are essential in building and advocating for new international structures that take them into account. So I think that this video series can be a really effective advocacy and education tool. And I'm really keen to see what we at WFM can do in regards to this. That being said, I was asked to speak a little bit about a video that resonated with me. And I was very taken by video number 15 on Jusue De Castro, who is a Brazilian activist and intellectual, and the former chair of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. So just a little bit of context. De Castro produced various books on the geopolitics of hunger. So he not only discussed the lack of food that people in the Global South face, but also provided a bit more nuance in talking about the quality of food that was available to people from the Global South and how this impacted their cognitive abilities, their health, and various other factors. So he highlighted hunger in the Global South as a result of sociopolitics and inequalities in the political system, more specifically in regards to food distribution from the West to the South, as opposed to other commonly cited causes such as overpopulation. So he very much advocated for a restructure of the global system as a means of tackling these inequalities. And the system he proposed would move away from a colonial economy to a more cooperative world economy. And he advocated for various global governance structures to assist with regulating food distribution while he was at the FAO. And these were, of course, rejected by Western countries who have a lot to gain from the status quo. So this led De Castro to get involved with the World Movement for World Government, which is today known as the World Federalist Movement, whereby he acknowledged that a democratic world federation would be able to implement global policy without the national interests of a specific country inhibiting change. So through De Castro's story, we actually see how actors from the Global South can play a key role in bringing nuance and providing inclusive policy solutions that can help to solve some of the world's challenges, especially where they are concerned. We also see in real time how national interests can take precedence over the common good and the absolute need to move past the current political structure if any change is to be realized. So on a more personal note, I'm certainly more convinced of the need to have greater representation from the Global South in the World Federalist movement as part of our membership, but also as partners in identifying global policy solutions for different issues. And that's it for me. I thank you very much for your time. Back to you, Dina.
Okay, thanks very much, Amy. And let me try and bring up a clip from De Castro.
This was not just an academic argument. How scientists understood the cause of world hunger would shape the types of solutions that they offered to it. The Malthusian notion that world hunger was caused by overpopulation implied that the blame for world hunger rests on the poor people themselves, and that therefore the solution is to reduce fertility and childbirth in the colonies or the so-called developing countries. But if, as De Castro argued, world hunger was actually a social and political creation caused by the unjust pattern of the organization of world food production and distribution, then the solution would be to change that pattern. De Castro brought convincing data to show that the food produced in the world was more than enough to feed everyone. The problem was not a shortage of food, but the extremely unequal distribution of that food. That same year, he attended two major conferences that would have a big influence on his future thinking and activism. In April, he attended the Bandung Conference in Indonesia. As European imperialism was beginning to indeed come to an end, at least in its direct form, many of the leaders of the newly independent countries from Africa and Asia were starting to think about how to collaborate as a bloc and how to work together to change the global system into one that was more equal and just. The first major meeting took place at Bandung, and this conference later led to the formation of the non-aligned movement. This was the group of countries, De Castro thought, that would be able to lead the movement to transform the world system. And it was here that he personally met several key leaders, including Nehru from India, Nkrumah from Ghana, Sékou Touré from Guinea, and many others. Later that year, in July, he attended the 7th Congress of the World Movement for World Federal Government, which would later become the World Federalist Movement, or WFM. And so De Castro began to get involved with the World Movement for World Federal Government and also with the World Association of Parliamentarians for World Government. In 1957, he published The Black Book of Hunger, a short manifesto setting out again his vision for how the world could be free of hunger. In this manifesto, he was now more clear that the way to bring about a just and balanced world food system required a system of supranational governance, a democratic world government that would have powers over and above that of the national governments. Describing the United Nations and the FAO, he writes, "Their decisions depend on assemblies of national delegates who place egoistic national interests above the higher interests of humanity. To resolve a problem of such a scope, something more is needed than an international organization. We need a supranational organization freed from those sterilizing injunctions of what is called, without much basis, the national interest of each country. We would need to organize a world government."
Okay, so thanks Amy, and thanks for bringing us that video. Now let me turn to our next special guest speaker, which is Bob Flax, who is the Executive Director of Citizens for Global Solutions in America, and who's speaking us today from California. We're delighted to have you here, Bob. Let me hand over to you.
So yeah, I want to begin by saying that in my view, this video series is a major contribution to the movement of really potentially historic proportions. And to you, Dina and Odette, I want to say that as far as I'm concerned, you could be very proud of your achievement. As far as I know, we've never had a series of high quality, well-articulated videos about the different aspects of our work, and now we do. As was said before, you know, young people are particularly video oriented, so this is perfect for them, but also our entire culture, you know, regardless of age, has grown to welcome and incorporate educational videos. So I see these really as very powerful tools to spread our work. It's truly a significant achievement. As far as CGS is concerned, the videos come as a perfect time for Citizens for Global Solutions. We're actually in the middle of redesigning our website, and the first phase of that redesign will go live before the end of the year. And we already have 4 ways planned that we will use the videos. First, we have entire web pages devoted to topics that are the same as some of the topics that you cover in the videos, like the history of World Federation. So at the bottom of the text, we'll just link to the video for people who want to see more and learn more. So it's perfect for that. We also plan to have links within the text at various places that are live links that go to the videos for more explanation. We're also working on an online self-paced course, a MOOC as they're called, that people can take anywhere in the world. Tentatively, we're calling it World Federation 101. Then we'll do 102 and 103 after that, and could incorporate the videos. And lastly, we'll have the entire set available on our media gallery, which will also be on the website. So in those 4 ways, we're already ready. And again, the timing is perfect. I also want to say personally that I teach a course at Saybrook University in global governance and World Federation. And I've been waiting for these videos. So I'm thrilled to have them for that. I've been asked to comment on the video on the history of the World Federalist Movement, because I talk a lot about that in my own presentations. And that particular video, which is one of the longer ones, is also very timely for WFM, because right now WFM is going through a theory of change process. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's kind of like a strategic planning process on steroids, where instead of just looking, 3 or 5 years into the future, we look long range until we finally reach our goal. So we're working on that right now. However, there are many people involved in that process that don't know our history. So the video on that is superb to getting people really up to speed. It's very complete, it's very rich. And rather than just trace the history of the movement in kind of a dry academic way, Dina takes you behind the scenes, really, of the movement, showing the various controversies and struggles between the different parts of the movement, as well as the victories and triumphs that we've achieved along the way. And it really brings the subject to life while presenting it in a very thorough and very well-researched way. I think it's excellent for both newcomers who want to learn about the movement, as well as those who've been involved for years. I mean, it's got just fabulously, again, well-researched information. And honestly, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I was really quite impressed as I was watching it. So I want to thank Dina and Odette for what I know has been a labor of love for years. I was in one of the earlier meetings, or several of the earlier meetings, so I got to see the evolution of this. And if you haven't already, you should take a well-deserved vacation and then come back for the next mountain you're going to climb. So back to you, Dina.
Thanks very much, Bob. Okay, so let me see if I can show a little clip from the history of WFM.
The discussions at the Montreux Congress were energetic and intense. The 2 key questions which dominated the discussions were, what should the future world government look like, and how do we make it happen? There were 2 major views about what the future world government should look like. Most of the American delegates favoured a minimalist approach, in which the powers of the federal level of world government would be limited only to security issues, while most of the European delegates preferred a maximalist approach, in which the federal level of government would also deal with socio-economic issues. The Americans wanted to focus on security, while the Europeans also wanted to deal with justice. There was also a divide in views about how best to get there. The Americans favoured a gradual and incrementalist approach of reforming the United Nations. The UN was still very new then, and there was a Charter Reform Conference scheduled for 1955, and the Americans favoured drawing up proposals and lobbying politicians in order to achieve change which would lead the UN in the direction of becoming a world government. Most of the Europeans, on the other hand, thought that the UN was fundamentally the wrong organisation, and that instead a new world government had to be created from scratch. They suggested holding a World Constitutional Convention to draft a world constitution, which they believed could be drafted, amended and ratified within a few years so that the new world government would be in place by 1955. Another group believed that the best route to a world federation was through the formation of regional federations. They thus felt that it was important to devote energy to the fledgling unification process that was beginning to start in Europe, and to push for the creation of a European federation. And so they set up the Union of European Federalists. Regarding the World Federation, the speeches on each side were long and detailed, and if they got too theoretical, the student delegates would urge them to a conclusion by chanting, "Action, action, we want action." That was the energy of the meeting, a desire for action and a belief that world federation was a possible achievement in the next few years. By the end of the Congress, it was agreed that the world movement for federal world government would pursue both strategies, UN Charter reform and a World Constitutional Convention.
Okay, that was just a small clip as a taster of some of those early discussions at the Montreux Congress. Okay, so now we move to our final speaker. I'm really delighted to invite Andreas Bummel to speak. He's the Executive Director of Democracy Without Borders and the convener of the Campaign for a United Nations Parliamentary Assembly. And I'm really happy that he's here. Andreas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dina and Odette, for producing these wonderful videos over a longer time span than expected due to not at least the COVID pandemic. Democracy Without Borders is a member organization of the World Federalist Movement. As Dina indicated, we promote the proposal of a UN Parliamentary Assembly as a step towards a world parliament, but we do this with the perspective of this being an engine for change towards exactly what is explained in these videos. Again, congratulations for providing them today and launching them now, so they are available to everybody. It is true, like Bob said, that in fact you are filling a gap here, and a crucial gap, because as far as I can tell, in fact, there haven't been such videos previously, professionally produced, well-researched, balanced in terms of what proposals exist, but also importantly, in my opinion, addressing a lay audience, basically. You know, it's videos that are not addressed to academics. There have been academic discussions on world federalism like for a long time, even if it's been ignored more or less by the mainstream academia, in my opinion. And these videos, they have the potential really to help world federalism go mainstream, because it is the medium, as Bob said, that young people use, but that is also crucial in our time. And they are also coming at a point where I would say the need for world federalist thinking and action has truly, in decades, never been as crucial as now, as we are faced. You know, we've been faced with the pandemic, we've been faced with autocratization, you know, democracy is under pressure. Now we see how the international order is being crumbled by a permanent member of the Security Council. You know, Russia's attack on Ukraine is actually an attack on the whole principles of international order. And a good thing about these videos is also that you don't mince words, right? You are not, you know, academically, well, although your analysis is balanced, your message about the solution is quite clear, right? And you are clearly also in your analysis saying, for instance, how the international order that I've just referred to has failed and is failing us still. And it's actually in connection with the lack of an effective response to the climate crisis and other things, is actually the root cause of the existential crisis of humanity that we are seeing now. So that's why these 25 videos are really a great resource. And also, for instance, because some of them, as Dana at the beginning has pointed out, can be connected really to specific issues like human rights, the climate crisis, economic inequality, other subjects. And to me, it is amazing, and it's really strange also why those big movements that do exist already in the world dealing with the climate crisis and inequality and other things, they are so ingrained in this paradigm of national sovereignty that they hardly ever think beyond what we have. And those videos, hopefully, and they will help bring people think about beyond what we have, right, towards indeed federal world government. So how would Democracy Without Borders use these videos? Many ideas have already been mentioned by the previous speakers, and for sure we will use them in similar ways. We will circulate them on social media. We might think about doing some online course, trying to find synergies with others who try to do the same. You mentioned the possibility that they could be used, each of them, as starting points for discussion events. So we will encourage our chapters and members to look into this, and how to use them. Of course, I mean, that's needless to say, we can promote them on the website and so on. That is clear. However, most importantly, and I'm so grateful for our collaboration on this, Odette and Dina, Democracy Without Borders has the honor and privilege to actually publish the whole series of lectures as a book. And the book is practically finished. It's been finished for a while. We are looking at the cover right now. So I will show you the current draft of the cover. Well, this is bad with this blur. So it remains a secret, how the cover will look like. Ah, here we go, right? So the book is actually finished. We are putting some final touches on the cover here and there, and technical things need to be sorted out. But I believe within the couple of the next weeks, you will be able to get it, and anyone will be able to get it at all online bookstores worldwide, and it will be available easily through those channels online and at a very low price. We think it should be inclusive, of course, and no big hurdle here financially to get it. And we are really delighted. It runs, I mean, and that says how extensive the videos are. The book runs over 260 pages, so it's really substantial work that has gone into this. There's been only slightly some edits here and there to make it more readable. I mean, it's a different medium, right? So this is also really going to be exciting to have it as a book. Some people, most people, I guess, they watch videos, younger ones, but some they prefer to read and have some physical book somewhere, and we will satisfy that need through the book. Now, finally, I myself, I'm working on the World Parliament proposal primarily within our organization and beyond. And in my opinion, achieving federal government of humanity, by humanity, and for humanity requires this World Parliament first and foremost. That, in my opinion, is the key institution that can make sure that we have a democratic structure, that people are included. It's not the only one for sure, but the key one. So that's why I selected the video on the World Parliament, that we can preview a little clip from that. And I like about the video most that it is really offering a broad perspective historically, going back to the French Revolution, for instance, where the idea of the World Parliament first was put forward by revolutionaries. No academics or philosophers put it forward at the time. No Kant, right? Often it is said Kant, yes, he promoted the World Parliament. That is not true. He never spoke about the World Parliament. He spoke about all sorts of things, but not about this. So it was a revolutionary, and that's how the video starts, with the French Revolution, and it drives us, through history actually until to the current point. And it also mentions, for instance, the very current and recent We the People's campaign for inclusive global governance that also includes the UN Parliamentary Assembly proposal in its platform. It mentions support of the proposal, like from Václav Havel or the European Parliament, and so on. So I think it's a good resource that can be used as well in this field. So I think we can have a look at it. Thank you very much. And again, Odette and Dina, excellent, well done.
Okay, thanks very much, Andreas. Let me see if I can get that clip up.
A world parliament would bring into being a very different kind of voice within global politics. Whereas the UN General Assembly is composed of representatives of governments, who ultimately represent institutional interests within the nation-state system, a world parliament would be made up of elected individuals who would speak for citizens and be accountable to them. So while the General Assembly is kind of similar to the US Senate, representing states, a world parliament would be a bit like the US House of Representatives, representing individuals. A world parliament would also help to develop a global or planetary consciousness. It would be a place where discussions centre on what is best for the world as a whole, and not what is best for my particular country. In a world parliament, rather like in the European Parliament, there would be representatives from both government parties and opposition parties. And these representatives would not sit or vote in country blocks. Instead, they would sit and vote in ideological blocks. So left-wing politicians from many different countries would sit together and vote together on left-wing ideas, while right-wing or green or liberal or what have you politicians would similarly vote together in their blocks. And this could ultimately lead to the formation of global political parties and to parliamentary debates about how best to organise the world system from different ideological perspectives. There would be open discussion and debate about different approaches to globalisation. Now that would be refreshing. And there could also be discussions about how to solve the major global problems that are currently facing us all. Climate change, COVID, inequality, biodiversity loss, and so on, rather than states negotiating according to their national interests, which as we have seen gets us nowhere. We would have citizens' representatives discussing collectively how to solve these problems. That's what we need.
That was just a short clip to whet your appetite. Okay, so I think, thank you very much to our 5 guest speakers. It's been really thank you for your kind words and your insights. And I think really now is the time to open up the floor for questions, comments, suggestions, anything. So let's start. The first person was, forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, but Jorge Romanillos.
Yeah,
would you like to unmute, and over to you?
Thank you. Well, first of all, again, congratulations for all this work. I agree with all the speakers here. I think this is a major contribution to our movement. And again, congratulations for that. I have a question, which is at the same time a proposal, because as Odette said, I am also a podcast lover. I put them while I'm driving, while I'm cooking all the time. And that's why I thought it would be very interesting, not only having subtitles in different languages, but also being able to translate the content of the videos into languages so that they are also audible for people all over the world. And of course, here we have a limitation because it's harder than just translating the subtitles. I don't know if you have this in mind, if it's up for individuals to step up and translate, record the content. I don't know how this could be managed, because I think it could be very helpful.
Thank you very much. I mean, it would be amazing. I don't quite know how we do the technicalities of it, but the idea is fantastic. So I would say, please, afterwards get in touch with Camilla and Odette. He's much more technical than me. And we would, if we can find a way to make that possible, we would certainly love to. So yeah, that would be great. Thanks so much. Okay, next question is Dror Kahn.
Thank you. Did I unmute? Thank you very much. I want to congratulate you and tell you that it's so important that it's made with very high, as people have pointed out, very high production values. That is so important. It's very slick the way you made it, and that's really important. I belong to groups that are not part of the movement, that in fact would probably find this very curious. And so my question is, what video can I show to kind of get them interested? What, like the equivalent of a trailer, I think that would be very, very helpful for my group to get them introduced to the concept and say, let's now have a series of talks about this. And so that's one. And the other one, I think, do you have a speakers bureau that can come and give little talks, such as Odette actually did come to my group one time. So, do we contact you, Camila, to present maybe a speaker to come in, like on a Sunday afternoon or so, to give a little talk about this to groups of people who are totally unaware that this even exists, such as I was. This was a brand new idea to me.
Okay, great questions, Dror. In terms of a trailer, we actually spent a long time thinking about that, and it's actually quite hard to put everything all into one video. So probably the one that's the most basic introduction, that is kind of what is world federalism, would be actually number one, federalism and world federalism. But I also think the way that the videos are designed is that you could actually choose any of the first, say, 4 or 5 and throw them in, and some of the the basic ideas come there, and then hopefully people will want to go into other videos to go deeper. In terms of speakers, that's another great idea, having a speaker bureau that we could send people out. I think certainly Odette is very much up for giving talks and is excellent at it. And that is something that I agree that Camilla can coordinate, because it would be great also to have people in other languages, not only in English. So I would say definitely please be in touch with Camilla and us afterwards, and we can think about how to get that going. So thank you. Okay, next person on the list is Joseph Baratta. Nice to meet you, and please unmute yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Dina and Odette. Your video series and the forthcoming book are certainly the most powerful works of advocacy that have been produced in many, many years. It's a great pleasure to see you, and also this quite large audience you have here today. Most people I don't know. I would like to ask a critical question. Academic scholars of international relations are pretty much opposed to world federalism. How do you think your video lectures can influence them? For instance, Thomas G. Weiss.
Okay, that's a big question. I would say, as you probably know, I am an academic as well, with my other hat on, so I'm well aware of the discussions in the academic world. I would say number one is that our primary aim, as Bob and Andreas said in these videos, is actually not to speak to academics, is to speak to the general public. So really our main focus is taking these complex ideas and ideas that are chewed over by academics in terms that most people can't understand, and to present them in ordinary language that anyone can understand. So that's really our main point. So we're not kind of aiming in this work to convince the academics. It would be really interesting to know what the academics would say to some of these videos. I think some of them are more academically focused perhaps, and others are more advocacy focused. I'm not sure that they're going to be the people that we convince with these videos. I think if we want to convince academics, we need to be doing that in our academic writing, which is kind of what I do with my other hat on. So that's probably the answer. That if you actually think that any of these videos would speak to some of these academics, then please be in touch with us afterwards, and we can think about that. I would say that there is the World Government Research Network. I don't know if you're aware of them, which is a network of academics who are interested in world government and therefore world federalism and global democracy. And we've already been in touch with them, and they have a nice website, and we'll probably put some of our videos there. And that will be probably our entry into the academic world, both for academics, but also for students. I think there's a lot of young people that are doing courses in international relations and global politics and global studies, who actually share our concerns, right? They're worried about climate change, and they're worried about inequality and the economic situation that this young generation finds themselves in, and they care about human rights. And they're savvy enough to see that despite what we get told, it's not being dealt with in the current order. So I can imagine that many of those students might be attracted to some of our ideas through these videos that they might find through the World Government Research Network.
Dina, I will also add with regard to the academics that it's an interesting thing to look through the years. The academics, of course, they are situated in their society. It's interesting to see how some of those scholars, as they think about the problems, they get to think about that actually what we need is a world federation. Like Danny Roderick and Thomas Dubai said, like got close to it, and Julie Tamir and others. And then suddenly they find themselves out of the milieu or consensus that exists in this system, and the system that retains the status quo, and they get freaked out and they get back to the nation state centrist position or the realist perspective of international relations. But I say that it's also a question of mass, and that the more people will find these ideas convincing, and as the reality of our international order shows how it is failing, it will push more and more people from the public and statesmen and academics to think outside of the box and critically. And then our videos, I hope, will help capture those people that think in this critical way, and give us the feeling that it is okay to support these radical ideas. So that would be my hope.
Okay, thanks very much also to Oded. Let me hand over to our next question is Pilar. Pilar, over to you.
Hello, everyone. And well, I will intervene briefly just to really thank you and congratulate you, Dana and Oded, for this fantastic series of lectures. I'm really impressed. And as all the friends have already said before, I think they're really well researched, engaging, interesting, and touching upon not only the world federalism and global democracy, but also all the other climate crisis, migration, economic injustice, all the global problems that really make evident that a change in the world order is needed. So just wanted to thank you, to tell you that I think a lot of people will find it very interesting, especially young people, all the people that are engaged in these movements against climate change, against economic injustice. So I think it has a great potential to reach out to people. I will definitely share it with my colleagues from the European Union of Federalists. And yeah, sure they will like it. So thanks a lot, and congratulations. Very well done.
Thank you very much, Pilar. Lovely to see you, and thanks for your words. Okay, our next question is Dafni Gogou.
Hi, good afternoon. Many thanks for this excellent work from my side also. So I think it's really an excellent background to share with a wider public, and to share basic ideas, and to start a more constructive dialogue with a wider group of persons. So from my side, I would like to share this video with the Executive Bureau of the European Federalists. I think that will give us great idea to develop a kind of additional videos concerning regional federalist movement, and be a little more explicit and explain what are the main achievements for us at the European level the past years, what are the main challenges for the future, and why we have to be committed to work in the global federalist movement now, in particular because we try to organize events celebrated the Montreux Declaration. So your video, it will be really a great background information to share for the participants in this future event. Thanks.
Oh, thanks very much, Dafni. And yeah, we don't go into the European federalism in too much detail, but we do mention it in video 1 about federalism and world federalism. We have a little bit there on European federalism and other regional federalisms. And of course, in the history of WFM, we do mention about the founding of the European Federalist movement. So yeah, thank you. And it'd be wonderful if your movement finds them helpful as well. Okay, Richard Samuel Deese, over to you.
Thank you, and everyone can call me Sam. I know a few people that are here today. I want to thank you for doing this, and I'm very impressed with what I've seen. And I wanted to mention a scholar who I think is very important working today, named David Savage, and his book, The Decline and Rise of Democracy. It is not a World Federalist book, but what I think is so important about it, and I teach it in my course at history course at Boston University, I think it's very important because it shows democracy or government with some level of consent as a human value, a universal value around the world. But it's also very sort of hard-nosed about why, states that need to negotiate with populations in order to tax them have generally had some form of council. The one reason I think it's so valuable is that people tend to view still democracy as a Western value. They tend to view world federalism as a hegemonic Western, holdover from the British Empire, Pax Americana, what have you. And I think that the, desire for people to have their consent registered in matters of, common interest is a very human desire and not inherently tied to any particular culture. So I think there's a lot of history that could be done to sort of show democratic values and sometimes democratic institutions as having a universal heritage or a global heritage. The other thing, I have a question, which I almost put on the chat, but I wonder if somebody just might be able to answer it verbally. And that is, speaking of people who kind of go and advocate world federalism and then retreat, the Guardian columnist and journalist George Monbiot wrote a wonderful book about 20 years ago, right, about world federalism with the wonderful slogan, everything has been globalized except our consent. And then he dropped it. I mean, he talks about neoliberalism and, climate change. And I want to know if anybody knows why, because he's not, up for tenure or worried about his colleagues down the hall in any kind of academic sense. He's pretty outspoken. So I'll shut off my mic and wait for anybody's answer on that.
Okay, that's just some really interesting comments. Thank you. I can give my 2 cents, and I don't know, Oded, afterwards, if you have anything to say about, well, first of all, actually about democracy as it being a kind of universal value. I actually agree. I'm, with my academic hat on, I'm actually an anthropologist. I'm a social anthropologist, and I did field work in a small rural community in Ethiopia. I lived in a village in a mud hut for a couple of years, and traditional, anthropological stuff. And indeed, the way that governance happens in this village is, as in many, many places around the world, is that all the people in the village, particularly the elders, but not only them, come together and sit in meeting places and discuss their issues, and they come to decisions actually by consensus in their case. So, but this is a sort of fundamental democratic thing, and this is not Ethiopia wasn't colonized. There's no way that you can say this is some kind of thing that came from colonial powers. So I very much agree with you. And I also think that this has sort of been part of very much the reasons for this sort of third module of our lecture series that brings all these non-Western voices, because, there is this, as you say, this sort of view that world federalism is a part of American hegemonic domination, and there is a part of it, at a certain time in history, perhaps that that was true, but there are also non-Western scholars who've come to the conclusion that what we need is world federalism from a completely different perspective, right? From people like Nehru in India, right, who's thinking, well, we want India to be liberated from the British Empire, but we don't want to then just be in this sea of competing states where basically we're less powerful and we won't do so well, right? And also Nkrumah in Ghana didn't want Africa balkanized into all these separate states that again would not be competitive in a competitive system. And we got that in the end, and they were right? And so, but they very early, in the 1950s and 60s, saw that was what was going to happen, and thought that what we need to have essentially was a democratic world federation, that was the way to equalize power between states. And, and Jusue De Castro, if we want to solve issues of world hunger. So we want to bring that history to life, and there's more research to be done actually on sort of non-Western approaches to world federalism. And it links, in my opinion, to your second question about Monbiot. So we know his book, and indeed we talk about it in one of the lectures. I think it's in the one about is globalization the problem, number 4, where we're talking about globalization and the anti-globalization movement, and indeed the World Social Forum. Because after Monbiot wrote his book in the early 2000s, his proposal initially of like how to take it forward was that the World Social Forum, which was a very new place where the sort of progressive social movements were meeting at that time, that the World Social Forum could kind of democratize and institutionalize and perhaps become a future world parliament. Right? That was one of his ways forward. And so he went to the World Social Forum in 2004 and presented his ideas. And I guess this is where, this is why he sort of changed his mind, because they weren't very well received, right? But I think this relates to what I was saying before, because most of the activists that are coming to the World Social Forum are indeed from the global South. It's movement, it's peasants' movements, landless people's movements, workers' movements, who were very scared that anything like that would indeed be hegemonic domination by the West. Okay, and so this is why it's so important to bring in that group of people into the movement, to show them that there is a whole history of thinking about world federalism from the South, and that it can be the most radical counter-hegemonic movement that there is. That work hadn't been done when Monbiot spoke to them in 2004. And perhaps that's some of the work that we can do now, and maybe then things might change.
Thank you so much. That's very enlightening, and it explains a lot about what you just said happened in 2004 at the World Social Forum. Another scholar who is doing this type of work is Luis Cabrera, with his book, The Humble Cosmopolitan, which is, really, really amazing too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Luis Cabrera he's one of the World Government Research Network people. He's actually written us an endorsement for our book, and we're very much in touch with him. So it sounds like we should be in touch with you as well. Really nice to meet you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Oded, did you want to add anything to any of those questions?
No, I think this was wonderful.
Okay, so last call for any final questions. Otherwise, I think we will wrap it up. Okay, so thank you everyone so much for being with us today, and for your very helpful comments and your heartwarming praise. That's really, really lovely to hear. We hope you enjoy the videos. We hope that you will take them and spread them and use them to be in touch with us, to be in touch with Camilla about how we can use them in all sorts of different ways. So I will close the meeting now. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening, good night, as they say.
Thank you, Dina and Oded. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keep in touch.